what do you do when you are thinking about your dad and it's, it brings up bad feelings or sad feelings?
I put on music to like escape. So.
Be seated. We are on the record in case A21-844-652C, Anna Marie Echevarria versus Zaon Collins. I want to say some preliminary things before I let the jurors say something. The attorneys say something, and before we bring the jury in. So, elevators. We did not have any elevator this morning in this building. I've been told that that's not going to happen again. But as a precaution, I am reaching out to the chief. I'm sending an email asking for a backup courtroom. And when or if I get a response to that, I will let you guys know what the backup plan is. Because I would like to have a backup plan in place. So if that happens again, we simply send out an email to everybody and notify everybody and maybe put even a sign downstairs that says Department 11 is across the street in courtroom, whatever. We'll give people a couple extra minutes to get there if we end up doing that, but I don't want to get in a situation where we can't get people up here. I'm already I don't love the elevator situation already. I'm sure everybody's noticed the signs. They're kind of a joke, but at the same time, they're really not a joke when you think about that it's an elevator. So I will let you know when I get a response of some kind and what that response is. What I understand the schedule to be, and let's talk about that too, because I'm going to talk to, that's going to be part of my request. I want to make sure I understand the schedule. As I understand it, tomorrow, we're also going to be able to do a 12:30 start with the anticipation that tomorrow, both cases in chiefs and the rebuttal can likely be finished. If we don't also get to the point where we're reading jury instructions tomorrow. Does everybody else understand that as well if we do a 12:30 start tomorrow?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Monday, with the understanding that we're probably going to come in and do closings, and I'll cushion what we have with an hour of time just in case we need to also still read the instructions. What do counsel anticipate a start time being, or what have you talked about as agreeing to a start time on Monday to do your closings, with the understanding that whatever start time we agree to, your closing might be as much as 45 minutes or as much as an hour later, because I'll read the instructions first. What time do you guys want to start?
I'd request 9 a.m., Your Honor.
Is that the same for you? Are you guys good with the 9 a.m.? Is everybody
We're
good
good
with
with
the
the
9
9 a.m. start.
Okay, let me confirm that. Okay, so 9 a.m. on the 19th.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, sure.
So we'll plan for a 9 a.m. start on the 19th. If we start at 9 a.m., let's say that the first hour is me reading the instructions, just in case. So if at 10 o'clock you get to start your closing, Mr. Ladah, I anticipate you don't know exactly how long yet, but how long do you anticipate the closing be? Just a rough estimate at this time.
My typical closings in a case of this size are anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, Your Honor.
Okay, so I'll say 3 hours just to be safe. So if you start at 10 and you get 3 hours, that's gonna go 10 to 1. We'll give them a lunch break, and then we'll go to the, because of how long that is, we're gonna go to the defendant's response to that, defendant's closing. Miss Zinna, how long do you anticipate yours being if, let's say, the latest it would start would be 2 o'clock?
An hour or two, maybe. I can't even imagine two.
Okay. And so that gets us to the latest at 4 o'clock. And Mr. Watson, what do you anticipate?
An hour or less, Your
Okay, so that's a 5 o'clock finish, worst case scenario then. And then I'll give them the option if they want to come back the next day and deliberate. If it's a 5 o'clock finish, I'll give them the option if they want to come back the next day and deliberate, or they want to deliberate that day.
There's no rebuttal though, Your Honor, just want to make sure.
Oh, okay, yeah, rebuttal too after that. How long do you think rebuttal's gonna be if they're, thank you for, I totally forgot about that.
Okay.
How long do you think that's gonna be if theirs is about 3 hours long? And look, we're gonna have to put breaks in there, and look, if you really think your closing is 3 hours, please practice it ahead of time and let me know that Monday morning, because we'll give them the option of a break at the 90-minute mark too. Like a 15 minutes to go stretch their legs and use the facilities if they need to. But let me know on Monday morning if you actually think it's
Sure.
3 hours,
I
or if
will.
you think it's more like 2 hours.
I will, Your Honor.
So with that being said, what do you think you need, an hour for rebuttal?
I was gonna say 45 minutes tops.
Okay, so it is possible, although I hope it doesn't get to this, and I think part of the solution is we do a shorter lunch on Monday, and we buy them the deliberation lunch on Monday, even though it's not gonna be while they're deliberating, so that the lunch they take will be already back there. And I give them half an hour instead of, well, 45, I'll give them 45 minutes. I think I have to give them at least 45 minutes for lunch. I'll give them 45 minutes, and then I think we can finish by 5 PM. I hope we can anyway. Because you guys are all giving me your worst case scenario estimates, right? Like when you say 2 hours over here, when you're saying 1 hour, you anticipate it's gonna be far shorter than that, right?
Correct.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so that's my plan going forward, and I don't know how long they're gonna deliberate, so I don't know what we're gonna need after that, but what I will be asking for is a back in courtroom for all day Monday and 12:30 onward for tomorrow. Okay, fingers crossed the elevators last today. Additionally, I thought about some of the objections, and I thought about some of the issues with some of the testimony. And I think it might be appropriate for me to give an instruction to the effect of, you haven't been instructed on the laws in place at the time of this incident yet. You will receive those instructions later in this matter before you hear closing arguments. Now, I'm okay with council coming together and drafting some version of that if you do not like what I've just suggested. But I think it is important that we let them know that the law is coming from the instructions that are being read to them, and that we haven't put people on the stand with the intention of those people giving them the law. Does anyone disagree with that or want to make some comments before I give you some time to talk to one another about putting together your own instruction if you don't like the suggestion I just made?
I'm fine with your suggestion.
I'm fine with how you've worded the recommended instruction, Your Honor. The
Okay.
suggested instruction, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'm gonna say something to the effect of, and I think I'd probably like to say it when they come in right now, so that it doesn't seem like I'm trying to target any specific witness. Unless council have a different suggestion as to when that should be given, where I'll say, it hasn't been our intention as of now, to give you any instruction on the laws in place at the time of this incident. So if you have taken any of the testimony to be a testimony to that effect, you should disregard it at this time, because you will be given instructions on the law in this matter and the law that was in place at the time of the incident shortly before the attorneys issue their closing arguments. You'll be given those instructions from the court. Anybody got any problem with that?
No problem, Your
Or
Honor.
some version very close to that, because I'm probably not gonna remember the exact words.
No issues, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, now counsel. Anybody want to make a record at this time?
I have two records, Your Honor. The first is brief and the second one is a little longer. The brief one I'll start with. Because of what the officer or the detective said outside the presence of the jury, I have a concern that if defense counsel gets up in closing and says, the detective did not say A, B, and C, and A, B, and C are in fact things he said on the stand in my offer of proof, it further prejudices us, because obviously we wanted the officer to testify to those things. And if they try to highlight the fact that he did not testify to those things when the jury was in his presence, versus when he did actually testify to those things just outside the presence of the jury, I think it would be inappropriate. I think it would be extremely prejudicial. And I think it would further compound the prejudice we face as a result of the testimony being disallowed. And obviously the court ruled on that, but our position was it should have been allowed, Your Honor. Just want to make that quick record.
What do you think they're gonna get up and say? You didn't hear the detective say what?
Sam Terry said all these things, but you didn't hear the detective say those things. And yet the detective did in fact say all the same things just outside the presence of the jury. For example, detective did say, you can't judge distance or your speed at that distance. Detective did say he's so far away, it was his right of way. He did say just everything he said outside the presence.
Okay, let's start with defense. Do you plan on arguing? I guess in your closing, that's what your concern is, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
You plan on arguing your closing? We heard from a detective. He didn't say this, he didn't say this, he didn't say this, he didn't say this. So Mr. Terry's
Oh,
testimony is not corroborated. Do you plan on making an argument either to that effect or something similar? If I'm understanding you correct, right, Mr. Ladah?
Yes, Your Honor.
I don't have any anticipation of doing that at this time. I need to go back and look through what he said in front of the jury versus what he said in the offer of proof to say, before I say I will not say something.
Well,
But-
what I'm asking you is
but-
this, though. Because I understand what Mr. Ladah is trying to prevent,
I do too.
okay? And I'm not, he's not trying to prevent you, as I understand it. Well, okay, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he's trying to prevent you from saying Mr. Terry's not credible because no one else said this, right? Essentially,
That would be one thing.
Okay.
If we objected to the detective saying something in front of the jury, and it was said during the offer of proof and
Okay.
not said in front of the jury. I don't have any anticipation of saying, well, you didn't hear this from the detective. I don't think that would be appropriate.
especially
Now-
because they wouldn't have heard it because of your objection to it.
Correct.
Okay.
And so, I guess the question is just, I can't really speak to specific circumstances because I don't have that recall of either the testimony, but I generally agree that no, I have no intention of saying, using what the detective said during the offer of proof outside the presence of the jury
Okay.
and putting that in my closing as, well, you didn't hear him say it.
Okay. Okay, so I think that kind of solves your issue. And I anticipate, I hope anyway, you guys were very good about giving each other your slides before opening. If you anticipate there to be the same number of objections, we'll come in a little earlier that day. We will, the attorneys will, and we'll make a record before we start. To go through those objections. I assume you guys are gonna do the same thing again with your closing arguments, right, with your slides?
Yes.
I'm happy to do it. It's gonna a little more difficult because it's gonna be choppier than the opening, if that makes sense, but I'm happy to show it to defense counsel.
Okay, so we'll try to build some time in Monday morning for that too. Okay,
Your Honor, point of clarification, though, we're gonna play clips from the trial for any testimony that was not objected to. Those don't need to be shared in advance, correct?
I don't know how you could really share those in advance if you're just handing somebody else a copy of your slides. But if it's unobjected to testimony that came in at trial,
Correct.
no, I don't know how somebody would then be able to raise an objection to, because I think there's an argument they waived it.
I would agree, Your Honor. I think it's fair game if it's unobjected to testimony in trial.
Mr. Ladah, did you have another thing?
I did.
Go
Okay.
for it.
Second one is longer, Your Honor. And I have documents with me so I can approach if you need to see anything. So, on 4/28 of 2022, I sent request for production of documents. Request for production number 16 asks for, I'll quote, all documentation and evidence in the criminal case / criminal charges filed against you arising out of the subject motor vehicle collision. This includes, but is not limited to, the following. 1, any and all documents produced by the prosecution and or the defense. 2, any and all toxicology results / reports. 3, any and all written or recorded statements and or testimony. And 4, all other evidence in the criminal case whatsoever, period. That's the entire request. Defense initially produced some very limited documents. We had 2 meet and confers, and they agreed to produce the entire criminal file. They told me they obtained the criminal file from Zaon's criminal attorney. And they produced what they alleged to be the entire criminal file. Now, after Zaon testified on Friday, I found an article from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. That article talks about how Zaon tested positive after the incident when he was on house arrest. 2 positive tests.
Positive for what? Because I have tried very hard not to see any articles about this case, not to Google anything that might pull up any articles about this case. So you need to tell me you tested positive for what?
Positive for methamphetamine. Now, we did not have it in the criminal file.
Even a test for methamphetamine in this situation?
No, but if I can explain, Your Honor.
Yeah,
Why
please
it's
do.
relevant. Okay. So first of all, it was not in the criminal file. They did not produce everything in the criminal file. Okay. Second of all, in his testimony from Friday, and it wasn't specifically asked by me, but it was volunteered by him. And I can find the testimony. My phone was off, but I have it right here. He said when he was asked about the marijuana, he went on to explain 3 times, no, I don't do drugs. No, I don't do drugs. The problem, Your Honor, is when he says that, he is now being untruthful. He has said something in open court that is not true. And as a witness's credibility is always an issue. So if he says something that is untruthful, and he knows he's being untruthful, or his counsel, and I'm not accusing his counsel of anything, because I actually think there's a lot of issues going on here between his criminal defense attorney and his counsel, or in other words, his criminal defense attorney and Mr. Collins possibly as well, not giving his counsel everything. So I'm not lodging accusations at them at this time. I want to make that clear. But the issue here is, once he says, no, I don't do drugs, no, I don't do drugs, his credibility is primary issue in this case. He's making a misrepresentation of this court. He has done drugs before. He has placed that at issue in front of the court. His credibility is an issue in front of this jury. They did not produce the entire criminal file. That criminal file contained toxicology documents after the crash showing that he tested positive. It refutes his claim that he don't do drugs. I don't do drugs. It directly affects his credibility. It is now an issue in the case, and it is a major problem here, Your Honor. So there's a few different ways we can remedy this. Otherwise, there's going to be a fraud upon the court and a fraud upon this jury.
Okay, so what are you proposing come in? Because there's a review journal article that says this,
Yes.
and then what corroborates or supports it?
Well, what corroborates it? So perhaps it's my ignorance, Your Honor, but when we looked at the criminal case, we're looking at so there's 2 criminal cases. Apparently there was a felony case and there was a misdemeanor case, because there was the felony for the reckless, and then the voluntary manslaughter ended up being under a misdemeanor.
Okay.
So under the involuntary misdemeanor case, there were toxicology entries on the Justice Court docket showing that there were toxicology results. And I know they were not in the file. And I know now that they were positive. So one, they go to
Are
his
there toxicology results though taken after the incident?
correct, Your Honor. But nonetheless, they go to his credibility now, because he said on the stand, I don't do drugs, I don't do drugs. And if you give me a second, I can pull
Are
up
there
this.
toxicology results where it hit positive for methamphetamines?
Correct.
Okay.
And if you want me to recite the exact testimony, I can find that. Just give me 1 second.
There's no argument here or nothing being proposed here that that methamphetamines are in any way related to this incident, right? Just marijuana, I thought.
Correct, but if he says I don't do drugs, he's lying to the court. He's lying to the jury.
Okay. Other than getting that in through saying you've tested positive for methamphetamines, is there an alternate way that you're proposing that it come in?
Well, there's a few ways.
Like having you had dirty drug tests before? Are you proposing to come in like that
I think that's fair game considering
without
I-
more details than that?
it directly addresses his claim that I don't do drugs.
Okay. Anything else before I let defense respond?
Um,
And I'm a little bit, so you asked, let me just understand too, before I let defense respond, and I'm gonna let you guys respond to this too. You're gonna be, you can answer the same questions. You asked them for the full criminal file, right? You asked them for it or you subpoenaed it from the court?
I subpoenaed it and it wasn't given to me, and it wasn't given to me by the criminal defense lawyer either. And so I requested it from them, then they didn't give the whole thing, they gave specific parts, and then we had 2 meeting confers. They said they would get the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they did produce it. What they claimed was the entire criminal file.
So you believed you had the whole entire criminal file,
Absolutely.
but it was missing these. Okay, I'm gonna just gonna say it this way, although I'm not trying to be, I don't know what else to call them except for positive drug tests.
Correct.
Okay, was missing these positive drug tests. When did you find out about the positive drug test?
This week, it was,
What date is the
Last-
article?
last couple days. The article is a long time ago, Your Honor. So, I know you're gonna say, well, how come you didn't see the article? Well, there's a lot of articles on this case, and I don't know. Articles are not relevant because I'm assuming that defense counsel is producing everything when they're telling me they're producing
But
everything.
when did you first see this article? Let's talk about it that way.
Was it yesterday or the day before?
How did you come to know about this article then?
And at night, I was up, I was thinking about what Zaon said, and I was
Yeah.
I was just Googling his name.
Okay,
That's the truth.
so after his testimony, you basically did a deep dive
Correct.
because you couldn't sleep.
Correct, you got it.
Okay, and you found it.
Correct.
And then when you found it, what did you do to like confirm that it was accurate information? I'm not saying that, and we have somebody from the review journal in here, and I'm talking about the review journal. I'm not saying that the review journal is not accurate, but you're taking in an article, not an actual official record of something. So what did you do to confirm that the review journal was citing accurate information?
That's my client. She was in the actual hearings and she remembers.
Okay, so you asked her,
Yes,
were you there? And then she told you I was there and
yes, I remember the positive drug test, and that's one of the things that upset me so much about the criminal case, that they was getting off easy, even though he was not doing what the court was instructing him to do.
this is while he was like on probation or something?
Correct. I think on house arrest.
On house arrest, okay, and they do regular drug tests. I'm not as familiar with I'm not as familiar with what the whole process is if you're on house arrest. So there's some kind of regular drug testing on house arrest where they test you for everything.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I'm not that familiar with criminal proceedings either, Your Honor.
Okay, and there wasn't some excuse given in the criminal proceeding, like he had an injury and this drug was prescribed to him, nothing like that was, to your knowledge, given.
I don't know any of that. I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Okay, anything else before I let defense respond?
No,
And you want to come in because it goes to his credibility? and
yes,
what-
so there's a few ways to do it, but one way is I could be given the opportunity to recall him tomorrow. He's gonna be here, so I wanted the opportunity to ask him about it.
Well, I think they are calling him tomorrow, right?
So my only concern is if they would object when I cross them and say it's not within the scope of their direct. And I think that would be unfair based on the fact that it was an RFP. They told me they were giving the entire file. They didn't object. They didn't create a privilege log and claim there were things being withheld. It was fair for me to assume that I had been given the entire criminal file.
Okay.
And now I find out that it has not. And I relied upon that when I do my cross-examination. And then I find this additional information that should have been disclosed much earlier.
Okay, so you either want to be able to say, yes, you did have positive drug tests and you tested positive for methamphetamines, or you've had positive drug tests in the past, something to that effect. You're willing to do the modified version of that is also what you're proposing, right?
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay. Response from defendant.
Yes, Your Honor. Okay, so what I believe Mr. Ramsey, Mr. Ladah is talking about is the defendant was wearing a scram patch as a bail condition
Okay,
before his sentencing.
why don't we talk about what scram stands for?
And scram, what a scram patch is basically literally just a patch that goes on his arm that monitors just sweat as it's coming out of his body
Okay,
and analyzes the sweat for drug use. And the court, so what Mr. Ladah is probably seeing in the justice court file is toxicology reports from the scram patches because they are they're a condition of his bail. And so he's seeing, and as I'm looking at the justice court docket, I can see there's constant toxicology report updates from the scram patch because they're real lifetime monitoring him via scram patch and then submitting those results to the court. I can tell you Zaon and nor my office ever had those results. We do not have those in our possession. Those would have had to have been subpoenaed from scram. But regardless, the alleged positive results for methamphetamine were actually suppressed because they were errors. They were never confirmed to be accurate results. His bail was not modified as a result of it. So essentially the court looked at the evidence the defense submitted on it and said, you know what, we're not going to pursue this. So nothing adverse happened to Zaon as a result of those, what we will call false toxicology reports. And it is my just own general understanding that sometimes those happen with the scram patches. They're not a perfect science. So that is why there was no ramifications to Zaon as a result of those faulty tests. The RJ picked this article up.
somebody have a copy of, well, I don't know if I even want to read the article, never mind, just keep going. Sorry.
There's.
You know the article he's talking about though.
Yes, I just pulled it up. The article I believe he's talking about, because I don't know if there was a different one. There's an article back from July of 2022, which would have been right,
Is that the one you're talking about? Do you know the date of this article? So that you guys are at least both operating from
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
same initial source, I guess?
We're
And
trying-
then
We're trying to find it
extrapolating
right now,
there?
Your Honor.
It's July 22.
July what?
Of 22.
July of 2022.
Just have a date on that.
Yes, July of 2022. And the report is that he reportedly tested positive for meth as his DUI case was pending. But after reviewing that, the judge declined to put Collins back in jail and declined to raise his bail. And his attorney denies using meth and are going to challenge the accuracy of the drug tests. They did challenge the accuracy of those drug tests and.
You're gonna
no-
get to talk again, Mr. Ladah. You're the one
no
talking.
adverse effects were taken against Zaon as a result. So in order to impeach him with that. The level of extrinsic evidence that would require to attempt to impeach Zaon, because Zaon, in our view, did not lie to this court, did not commit a fraud upon this court, because his testimony was true. I don't do drugs. A faulty scram patch is
You
not,
didn't say at any point he's never had a positive test, right?
that wasn't the question.
Okay.
The question, he volunteered, there was actually no question, as Mr. Ladah pointed out, he just said, I don't do drugs.
Okay.
So the scram patch, in order for this to be. What's the word I'm looking for? In order for this evidence to have the proper foundation and be the best evidence that we could have in order to impeach him, we would, need to have the toxicology reports from scram, which I understand Mr. Ladah's apparent frustration that we never had that in our possession. That was something that Zaon never had in his possession. Those reports are submitted from scram to the court, is my understanding, or to the PO or whoever is overseeing his case. They are not given to the criminal defendant. He doesn't have it. We turned over everything that we possibly had. And then secondly, there was no, so revocation of probation would have been an adverse action that we would have an order from, or a raising of the bail, denying bail,
Well,
something
let me
that
ask you,
was.
okay.
Yeah.
So this scram test comes back the way that the Review Journal article stated.
Right.
So do you have I mean, I'm assuming that the reason why they're using these is because they then get a follow-up test. So you have the results of the follow-up test that you could give Mr. Ladah.
I don't. So if we take a look at the Justice Court, there's probably at least 20 different entries for toxicology report from the Scram Patch.
Yeah,
And those are all just like the standard monitoring that are filed with the court per his bail conditions. I mean, more than 20 as I'm going through, there's a lot of them. We do not have those. And the Scram Patch was, continued to remain in effect as a bail condition. And there was a motion by the state to remand and increase bail, which was denied. And then he was, I think, the only adverse effect that he was also, in addition to the Scram Patch, subject to blood tests, and there was no further.
well, there would have been an order on that motion, right?
There was.
there an
and
order on that motion?
unfortunately, Justice Court, I don't have access to the Justice Court filings. It just shows me the docket.
Okay, well, you know what? Somebody who cares about this, both of you guys across the street on the 3rd floor, you can go ask for it,
Right.
like whatever you guys need.
The other point though is if this was truly an issue and they knew that there was.
And by the way, I'm not being, because I don't have access to the Justice Court documents either.
I
okay?
didn't think you did.
Otherwise, I would pull them up right now.
Right, I understand that. I wish we all did, because I often find myself looking for those documents, but we do not. So that could have been subpoenaed, because I can't access that either. That docket could have been pulled and printed and produced way earlier in discovery. And.
What's the Justice Court case number you're
the-
looking at?
20 CR 041639. That's what I'm seeing.
Yes, that's correct,
20CR041639.
correct.
Okay.
And then the other aspect of this is, because council brought up the fact that, this was addressed during discovery. If he just stated that Anne Marie knew about the Scram Patch results because she was in the courtroom. So she knew that there was a positive test for methamphetamine that she believed was relevant to this case. She had every opportunity from as of July of 2022, nearly 3 years ago, to tell her counsel for them to subpoena those records from Scram and pursue this during the course of discovery. So again, this is just an untimely last-ditch effort to try to impeach Zaon with evidence that isn't the best evidence. It was never, it wasn't ever entered into his criminal case as being a valid test result. No adverse action was taken, no revocation of probation, there's no like a judgment of conviction saying, yes, you tested positive for meth. This wasn't just a weird result that we sometimes get from Scram Patches. This is true. You need to stop doing meth, which he's never done. And that document could somehow come into this court to impeach him with. That wasn't the case here. So while I appreciate the attempt, Zaon's never done meth. The Scram Patch was faulty and it did not have any adverse impact on his criminal filings or his criminal state.
Hey, Mr. Watson, anything to add?
Just briefly, that the risk of unfair prejudice to my client is significant if this were to come in. And there's no probative effect. It's not going to prove anything because they don't actually have documentation to establish. So just even asking the question, even if he denies it, raises the issue with the jury, and that's highly prejudicial to the defense.
To your client, how so to your client?
Well, to the extent they have derivative claims, or not derivative claims, but
Oh, to the vicarious liability claim.
yes.
Okay, okay.
Mayor Swangar.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right, so two things. The first is, this morning we were able to send someone down when we learned about this, to download a document. I have something entitled State's Notice of Motion, Emotion or Remand and Increased Bail. It has the toxicology results, the positive results attached to it, and it has a service page. It was served on gentleman, fine attorney by the name of Richard Schoenfeld, who is at Chesnoff and Schoenfeld, who was Zaon's attorney at the time. So when a document is in an attorney's possession or a client is presumed to be in the client's possession, Your Honor, they had this information. They didn't disclose this. So
That motion,
yes, the motion, and it has the toxicology results attached, the positive tox results. We have not seen anything in the docket of the court saying the tests were somehow.
okay, you subpoenaed the criminal file from the criminal attorney too, right?
It did, and
and-
he didn't give it.
He didn't give it, but
Correct.
they gave you a file. Was there a cert on top of it saying it's the full and complete file, like, the certification?
I have to look.
Okay.
And I can tell you, no, it wasn't. It was just that is what is in exhibit 35. I
Yeah,
wanna
you
say.
guys didn't give it to them with a cert on top of it?
Well, it was just everything that Zaon had in his possession relating to his criminal file.
Hmm.
And we did not do it because it came from him.
Zaon didn't have this document he's talking about, even though his attorney
No.
was copied on that? Or mailed it or something?
No, and
Okay.
I don't.
Have you seen that document he's talking about before?
I've
Why don't you
never
show
seen that
Miss,
one.
why don't you show Miss Zena what you just pulled out, and especially the test results therein?
And I will tell you, we couldn't find anything in the docket saying that the test results were false positives. We couldn't find any order from the court saying the test results were false positives. There is absolutely no evidence of that. So if Zaon tries to testify to that, I don't know where he would have the foundation for that, first of all, and second of all, it wouldn't be based off of some court order or expert testimony of any type or expert analysis of any type. But the long story short is we do have the evidence now that we have these toxicology results. I think it's only fair game that we should be able to, oh, and it says here as a result, this is from the RJ article. It says, instead of increasing Collins' bail, Las Vegas Justice of the Peace and Zimmerman said Collins would now be subject to random blood tests to check for drugs. I don't see anywhere in the article where it says that somehow the court concluded that these results were false positives, Your Honor.
Well, I'm gonna give them a chance to look at the record too, especially in light of the document you're holding. Do you have an additional copy of that?
I don't.
Okay, why don't you give it to my staff during the first break and they'll make an additional copy for Ms. Zena, or why don't you also take a picture of the first page of that document if he hasn't marked it up? And send your office across the street too, to not just get that document, although we'll put you a copy of that one. We can take it back to our copy machine and copy it. But also have your office go across the street and check and see what's filed after that, because there's an order in place that clarifies this whole situation one way or the other. I don't know what it'll be. But why don't you take note? Would you like to take a copy of the first page of that too, Mr. Watson? And you guys can work on that. And I mean, there's at least one more attorney from your office sitting in this courtroom that maybe you could send across the street, or maybe there's someone else you could send across the street to go start pulling documents.
And this is the testimony here. He says,
And by the way, if there are more documents from either side, they can be submitted to me for review. That probably would be good, but full disclosure, I'm not prepared. Or I'm probably not going to make my rulings based on just an RJ article, okay? I don't anticipate doing that, but if you've actually got court paperwork that's somehow verifiable, especially if it's got a file sample on the top of it, that would be helpful. And I'd like to see the order on that motion.
Okay.
And what the results were, determined to be from I'm assuming that's still the Justice Court case, right? What
Yes,
the
Your Honor.
Justice Court determined, what the Justice Court judge determined for an order following that.
And-
Okay,
And if I may, Your Honor.
Go
just-
ahead.
it is
but
my-
let me ask one question too. Does this need to be resolved before we put Ms. Echevarria
No.
or Mr. Echevarria on the stand?
As long as Ms. Echevarria is not going to testify as to her witnessing a positive scram patch report in her testimony, I don't believe so, but if she intends on testifying to that, then yes.
I think that's perfectly fair game because she was in the courtroom when it happened.
Okay, well, we're gonna hear from Eric first, right? And Eric was not in the courtroom when that happened, right?
He's not testifying to it if he was. I don't know if he was there or not.
Okay,
Either way.
so let's hear from Eric first. Let's get Eric on the stand. Let's start that. And then, in the meantime, maybe your offices can go, across the street and pull some more documents. I'm gonna see if anybody in my office can pull more things from the Justice Court case, but full disclosure, like I said earlier, we have limited access to Justice Court cases. We have a lot of access to District Court cases, but we don't have that same access to Justice Court cases because of the platforms that are accessible to me and most of my staff. But I have the Justice Court case number, so we'll see what we can pull up too. What's the date on that document that you're holding, Mr. Ladah?
6/27/2022.
Okay, that gives us at least like a place to focus. Okay. So I'm gonna see what my JEA can come up with, if she's able to access anything in justice court around that date too, so that I can see the orders. I'm more concerned with the orders than the moving papers of counsel. Because look, council all have a job to do, and they're going to more often than not only put one side forward in their moving papers. And I'm not saying they're purposely not telling the whole story, but their job is not to tell the whole story. It's to advocate for their client. So I'm more concerned with whatever orders followed that. But I do understand too that your position, Mr. Ladah, is that there's an actual drug test result within there, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
And my last, just for the record, because this has come up in other ways in this court, in this trial. The justice court case was initiated in January of 2021. This could have been pulled and produced at any time prior to the close of discovery. The subpoena, Mr. Ladah had every opportunity to bring a motion to compel the criminal file from the criminal attorneys if he felt like he didn't have everything. The RJ article came out in July of 2022. His client was in the courtroom in July of 2022. They have collectively known about this potential issue for years. And not a single thing was done in discovery to obtain any information regarding this scram patch.
Okay, but I think it was compelled. I thought it was compelled. I thought there was motion work on this exact issue. And I thought it wasn't there issues of not producing this.
Yes,
and
Your
then
Honor.
It got compelled.
And I had meeting confers with defense counsel, Mr. Paterno was here.
Yeah, so this
I
wasn't
have
like,
emails with that, and they agreed to produce the entire thing.
and so I think their assumption was that they had it. And so go ahead.
So, but the problem with that is, right, so when they're sending the defendant an RPD for the criminal file that he has in his possession, and they're having meet and confers, and perhaps Mr. Girani can shed some light on this. Again, this docket is available to Mr. Ladah as early as January of 2021, and if he felt, as he's looking through this docket, he goes, hey, where are these scram patches, what's going on here? I don't know why that would have been brought up in the meet and confer, and if we said we didn't have it, why a subpoena would not have been sent to Scram, or why if his subpoena to the criminal attorneys failed, why he wouldn't bring a motion to compel to them.
I understand your position, Ms. Zinna, but here's the thing, and I'm not saying this is exactly what Mr. Ladah's position was, but the thought process that I would have if I was counsel and I had another licensed attorney in the state of Nevada handing me a file saying this is the full and complete file, would be that is a licensed attorney with a bar number on the line that probably isn't lying to me. And I would trust them. Now, if you're telling me that you shouldn't trust the words of a licensed attorney, that's an issue.
But Your Honor, so, and I just have to sit when we're asked for things like this, and I don't think that is what I'm intending to say.
Okay,
We
let me know what you're
produced-
intending to say
and-
then.
And we produced everything that we had, that Zaon had in his possession regarding this case. Did we go to the justice court and pull the filings from there and submit those as part of the criminal file? No, we did not. That was public
Yeah, but if
record. at
Zaon
that
went to
point.
his attorney, his criminal attorney, and said, give me a copy of your file.
Then I
that
don't
should be
know
there.
why, right, I don't know why those weren't included in that file. And that was not something that our office had a part in, and honestly, I did not, quite frankly, because the scram patches weren't an issue, because I understood the testing to be a false positive. That wasn't something that we even thought to do as far as going to pull the justice court docket and produce those information. All of that is publicly obtainable as we are trying to pull right now. And then if there was any issues with how the scram patch came about, and I didn't have the opportunity to subpoena scram and see where that came from and why, so this is bringing this up at the 11th hour when council's known about this since the onset of the case, and now we're dealing with it without any warning. And I don't have an opportunity to brief it. I don't have an opportunity to pull records. I don't have an opportunity to really address it because, council saw an RJ article. It was not addressed during the course of discovery. It seems extraordinarily prejudicial given what the scram patch issue was.
May I respond briefly, Your Honor?
Go ahead. But
Okay.
let's make it brief and then I'll
Quick.
give you time to make more of a
Two
record.
things. First of all, if you recall, Your Honor, this case was frozen for a long time. Defense counsel filed a motion to stay the case while the criminal case was pending. When I did the subpoena, all the responses I got was criminal case is still open. We cannot respond to your subpoena. No one could give me anything. Once the case reopened, that's when I started having these meeting confers with defense counsel. They agreed to get all the information. My understanding is they were getting it from Zaon's criminal defense attorney. That's why my understanding was when they produced the criminal file, I was getting the entire criminal file that they received from the criminal defense attorney. Now I learned that it's not true. So I don't believe this information was accessible for a long time. I don't believe that's true. And by the time it wasn't accessible, I did my part and had my meeting confers. My understanding was they were producing the entire criminal file, and now I find out it's not, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
But again, this is a public record. So there was never access lost to it. They just needed to go to the courthouse and.
Yeah, but then
request
you
it.
say to them when you hand them the file, okay, we didn't pull stuff we thought was public record. This is just the stuff we don't think is public record. Like, here's the issue. We do need to trust each other as counsel. We need to trust words of counsel. And I'm not saying your office was purposefully or intentionally devious here, but at the same time, if your office said to him, this is the full and complete file, and it didn't have that document in it, look, I know how things were kept in my office. I don't know how things are kept in your office. I don't know how things are kept in your office, but I know how things are kept in my office. And I will tell you, like, something like that would have been part of my client's file if I was dealing on a case where that was sent to us. And the criminal attorney's name is on that as a recipient. Now, I haven't looked, or at least that's what Mr. Ladah is presenting to the court. And look, as I sit here now, I have to and want to take the words of counsel that are put forth in front of me, because if I can't take those words as actual truth, then we've got bigger issues here. So look at the certificate of mailing that Mr. Ladah referenced, or
It is to his
certificate of
criminal
service. Okay,
That's his
so
criminal counsel,
so-
not our office.
I understand that, but Mr. Ladah was under the impression, and I'm not exactly sure why, maybe that's a different issue too, but was under the impression the file you were giving him was from the criminal attorney. So the criminal counsel would have had that in the file, and the excuse of, well, that's a publicly filed document, they could have accessed it themselves. That's a fine excuse if when you handed Mr. Ladah the file, or this is a flash drive, whatever, when you handed it over to him, you said, we haven't put all the publicly filed documents in because you can go get those for yourself. Okay, but if you hand it over to him after there's a bunch of meet and confers back and forth, and you say, this is all we have, this is our full file, this is what our client got from his criminal attorney, absent anything that we've removed because it's attorney-client privilege, which that would not be attorney-client privilege because that's a publicly filed document that has a stamp on it that was filed. But that would still be part of the file. Like, whenever any client came to my office and said, can I have my full file? I put a flash drive in the computer and I copied everything, and something like that would have been in like the pleadings folder of the file. And
Is-
so I don't know exactly what you gave him, okay? I'm guessing it was hundreds of pages, probably even more than exhibit 35, okay? Because there's probably more to it, okay? So which exhibit 35 is the correct one. That's what we have in the binder, right? Okay, so we're in the situation we're in at this point. Go ahead and make your record if you want.
I would love
But
to.
yeah, go for it.
So when we produced this file, we actually called it, Zaon Collins criminal file from client.
Okay.
And I believe it was our understanding that there was a subpoena that was issued to Mr. Chesnock's office for any remainder files. So we produced what we had for the client.
Okay.
And it is our position that it is a very rare occasion that I will produce as in response to an RPD, something that is a publicly filed document, especially if counsel is aware of it. We are all aware that there were multiple criminal proceedings because there was an issue with the DUI charge.
Yeah.
And Mr. Ladah was aware, or should have been aware, that there was a justice court proceeding, there was a district court proceeding. The filings from both of those proceedings were not produced by anybody in this case,
Okay.
including Mr. Ladah. I did not turn over the proceedings or the filings from the district court criminal case either, because those again are public records. So when I get an RPD for the criminal file, My expectation of what he's looking for are things that are not publicly filed documents, and I unfortunately was not part of those being conversed, and if there was a misunderstanding, that's fine. But again, we're going back to a situation where Mr. Ladah knew or should have known were these public filings, and if he felt like I would needed to produce them as part of my response to the RPD, that could have been a motion to compel. We could have had a talk. This is the first time I'm hearing the scram patch issue come up in this litigation, and it seems very clear to me that he is doing his best to use something that is very little evidentiary value, has been confirmed, or otherwise had foundation for, to essentially throw mud at my client, and that's inappropriate, and untimely.
Okay, you want to say anything more?
Do you want me to, Your Honor, or do you want me to say my, because I have a lot to say, it's gonna take a long time, but I don't wanna waste
Okay,
court's time.
then let's not do that right now. Let's get the jury in and get moving. I will give you my initial leanings just briefly hearing this right now. Even if I'm inclined to allow some of this to come in, I'm not gonna be inclined to let the statement that it was methamphetamines that was hit on this test or came up on this test. I think that's definitely overly prejudicial here. I'm thinking about the rest of it, but I don't have enough information in front of me about the rest of it. I don't have that drug test in front of me. I know you've got the document. We'll make copies of it as soon as we can during the first break. Please have somebody from your office. If it isn't you, if you need a break, come up here and hand it to us.
Question.
Whoever is not muted online, please mute yourself. Otherwise we will kick you off. And I'm not trying to be aggressive or mean with you. We can't have our record be muddled with that. Just like if you were in the courtroom and you were speaking too loud, we would ask you to please step out. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to do that. So if you're on Zoom, we kick you out because that's the equivalent of coming up to you in the courtroom and saying you have to either quiet down or step out. But this is your warning that you need to quiet down, which means mute yourself. Otherwise you will be removed.
I'm gonna approach with a copy, Your Honor.
Sure, and we'll have somebody go make a copy of it as soon as they can.
Thank you.
But I also, there's certain people who have to be in this courtroom while we're moving for certain reasons. Kim, are you able to go make a copy? If you're able to. If you're not able to, you can wait till the next break. That's a clean copy that you're giving her without your notes on it, right? Sorry, what? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so, I'll hear more argument on this later, but I think we need to let's start going at least with Eric Jr. Okay. Anything else before I bring them in? Are they lined up outside already? Okay, while they start to line up, I'm gonna read you the instruction that I actually wrote down that I proposed earlier, unless you guys want to say something else. On this issue, I don't need anything more right now. We're gonna revisit it after people pull more information because I don't have enough information in front of me to make a ruling. But like I said, my preliminary thought right now is that the actual, even if this does come in for some reason, which I don't know what else is gonna come up, but even if I am inclined to let it in, I'm not inclined to let in the findings of that test. Just that it was a positive finding, okay? At this point, if I let any of it in, but it's still a very big if, because I don't know what else I'm gonna be shown and I haven't seen the actual documentation. Mr. Chu, what do you need to say?
I'm very peaceful housekeeping matter, Judge. There are about a half dozen photos that who I intended to introduce through Eric Jr. I presented copies of them to defense, took a few out from the pile that I had, and I wasn't sure if the court wanted me to identify those on the record as to the ones that are not pre-admitted, but which have been agreed to come in without me having to actually go through the process of admitting them, or I can just identify them in real time and they can be on the record.
They're stipulated to?
I'm
You don't have any
sorry.
problem with these photographs?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, if there's no problem with the photographs, you can do it right now if you want, or you can just do it with the witness on the stand. Unless you anticipate for some reason there's gonna be a withdrawal of there being no problem.
Sure. Good call. Let's see, so these are not in order of number, but in any event, 45 -001, 47 -001, 41 -007, 57 -001, 48 -001, 58 -002, and 41 -003. Yeah, that's all.
No objection to any of those being admitted,
Correct.
and you're moving to admit them.
Yes, Judge.
Okay, hearing no objection, they will be admitted. Kim, were you able to write those all down? Sorry. You will, okay. Okay, so, anything else from council while they're lining up? Otherwise, I'm gonna read the proposed instruction I have in place. Okay, so here's the instruction I discussed earlier. I just wrote it down because I want to make sure that I say it as close to what I said earlier. You will be given instructions in the law by the court later in this matter before the attorneys deliver closing arguments. Any testimony you believe you may have heard in this matter as to the law in place at the time of the incident should therefore be disregarded. It has not been and is not the intention of the court to give instructions on what the law is or was at the time of this incident via any witnesses in this case. The law and instructions on the same will be given to you in the instructions I read or in the statements I make to you in this matter. Anybody have a problem with that?
No problem, Your Honor.
No problem, Your Honor.
No problem.
Okay, anybody want to see it written down?
No, it's fine, Your Honor.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, so I will read that after they come in here. I believe they are lining up. Any other short thing that anybody needs to put on the record?
I'm sorry, Mr. Eric Junior has to use the restroom. I apologize.
Yeah, go ahead. While they line up, do you think you're gonna be, I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but is it gonna be 5 minutes or less? Okay, then go ahead.
I'll show him. Can I show him?
Yeah, go ahead. Just be careful of the jury out there, but just be quick. Okay, thank you. Everybody can please be seated. Do council acknowledge the presence of the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Before we get right into more witnesses, I just want to read you a quick instruction from me. You'll be given instructions on the law by the court, me, later in this matter, before the attorneys deliver closing arguments. Any testimony you believe you may have heard in this matter as to the law in place at the time of the incident should therefore be disregarded. It has not been and is not the intention of the court to give you instructions on what the law is or was at the time of the incident via any witnesses in this case. The law and instructions on the same will be given to you in the instructions that I read to you or in statements I make to you in this matter, okay? And you will be read, like I said, a thorough set of instructions shortly before the attorneys deliver their closing arguments. Okay, with that being said, counsel, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Judge, thank you. The plaintiffs call Eric Echevarria Jr.
You can solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth and the state penalty for breach.
Excuse me.
Spell your first and last name for the record.
There.
Yeah, sorry. Yep, a little bit closer to that microphone.
Eric, E-R-I-C, Echevarria, E-C-H-E-P-A-R.
Thank you. You may be seated. Be sure to pull that microphone real close and hit that little red button just to help.
Good to go, Judge?
Yes, go ahead and proceed. And you can go ahead. You don't have to look at me. You can look at him or the jurors.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey,
Go ahead,
Eric.
counsel.
Thank you, Judge. How's it going, Eric? Good. Yeah, is that light on your mic
I'm
there?
not sure the microphone's on.
Tyler, feel free to,
Is it on?
I think you tap it.
nope.
Push the red button.
It again. Now it's on. You just need to speak into it.
Like that?
Yeah, if you don't mind coming
Yeah.
into it a little bit. You can adjust it. It moves around, so yeah, go ahead. You can move close to you or you can move it. Yeah.
That's good. All right.
All right, we good?
Yeah.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, yeah, you tend to be a little bit soft-spoken. If I ask you to speak up here and there, you'll be mad at me?
No.
Okay, all right. How are you feeling? You feeling nervous?
Yeah.
Why are you nervous?
Just never done this before.
Okay. It won't be too bad. Let's get to know you a little bit. How old are you, Eric?
18.
How old?
18.
Okay. And have you lived in Las Vegas your whole life?
Yeah.
You go to school?
Yeah.
Where you go?
Sierra Vista.
Sierra Vista High School?
Yeah.
What year are you in high school?
Senior.
Are you in finals?
Yeah.
When's your next final?
Tomorrow.
Uh-oh, all right. What's the final in tomorrow?
English.
And you've been here at trial for most of the days. Have there been some days you missed because of school?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're a senior, you're in finals. Is there some big event coming up for you pretty soon?
Graduation.
Okay, you excited?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. During your time in high school, what would you say has been your favorite subject?
English.
Okay, so are you excited for your final tomorrow?
Yeah.
You actually are? That was kind of a trick question. All right. You do well in English?
Yeah.
Uh, what are your plans after you graduate?
Firefighter.
Are you want to train to be a firefighter?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Let's shift outside of school. When you are not in school, what types of activities do you like to do?
The typical is like calling my friends and stuff, playing with my dog, but I go to the gym a lot.
What gym do you go to?
EOS.
Is it EOS or EOS?
EOS.
I never
know
know
you're
what to
good.
call it. How often do you go to the gym?
Like 3 to 4 times a week, and then like a rest day.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Do you go by yourself? You go with friends?
I mostly go with friends, but sometimes it's by myself.
And you have 4 older siblings?
Yeah.
You are the youngest, right?
Yeah.
By a pretty good amount.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned a dog. What's your dog's name?
Zoe.
Zoe, a big dog, a little dog?
She's little. It's like a chihuahua.
Okay, that is little.
Yeah.
All right. So Eric, you know why we're here today and what this trial is about. You know that the main thing we need to do is talk about your dad right now, right?
Yeah.
And we need to talk about your relationship with your dad and about what you've been through in terms of losing your dad. You understand that?
Yeah.
Do you talk about these things very much?
No.
Do you feel comfortable talking about these things?
Not really.
Well, let me ask you, are you saying you don't really feel comfortable talking about them because we're here in court and there's people here you don't know that well and it's kind of intimidating? Or are you just saying in general you don't like talking about these things?
Just in general, for like what happened.
All right, well, you're going to do your best with us to talk about things as much as you can, right?
Yeah.
All right, I appreciate that. And I won't keep you up here too long. Your dad was Eric Sr. and you're Eric Jr.?
Yeah.
What did he call you?
Just little Eric.
Little Eric?
Yeah.
Okay. Did he call you that even as you got a little bit older?
Yeah.
You think about your dad a lot?
Well, at first, obviously, I did, but now it's with all the stuff I have to do, it's just
How often do you think about your dad? You think about him every day at some point?
well, yeah, every day, but like mostly in like the morning and stuff. But like yeah, every day, yeah.
Mostly in the morning. Why is that?
Just when I wake up, it's like because like when I wake up, at first I don't think about it, as much, but then I realize like he's gone, so
So
gotta come to terms with it.
is it, I want to make sure I understand you. Are you saying that in the mornings there's a really brief period where you wake up and you don't think about or don't realize the fact that your dad's gone, and then you have to realize it and come to terms with it?
Yeah.
Let me go back a bit into your childhood. You said you're 18 now, is that right? Did I
Yeah.
ask you that?
Yeah.
Okay. this might be kind of a tough question, but what is your earliest memory or some of your earliest memories you can share with us about your dad?
Well, I like trains a lot. So like, like the Silverton.
You said trains?
Yeah.
Okay, so make sure you speak up when you're talking
Oh,
about this stuff.
sorry.
It's all right. You're
It's like trains. It's like a Silverton building. There'd always be like the statue. Well, not a statue, but like carving of these trains that like go out. And whenever we would drive past it, my dad would like take videos of me like playing around them and stuff and like going on them. And it's another one with trains. It was like an actual train we got to go on. He had a buddy that like worked there and like worked in stuff, and he gave me like a conductor hat. Took like pictures with it. That just like ride in the train with him.
Did you guys get to actually ride in the train or just
Yeah,
when it was moving?
yeah.
All right, it's not something you hear every day. Okay.
And
Y- would you say you spent a lot of time with your dad growing up?
oh yeah, it's like every day.
As you think back, what are the types of activities that you and your dad would do together the most frequently?
He really like adventure stuff. So like hiking, like encouraged me to do and stuff. He would also go to the gym a lot, and he would like a kid. Well, every time he would invite me, and I would occasionally go. Stuff like that. Just like take me places to hang out, cause he knew how much I like games. So like the arcade and stuff, he would take me. And yeah,
I don't know arcades. What kind of arcade?
like Dave and Buster's.
Okay, that's a good arcade.
And there's this one called, I don't think it's here anymore, but it's called GameWorks. It's like it's where the AMC is. I think they changed the name though.
Okay. How about in the summertime?
Oh, he would take me to like water parks a lot, and like trampoline parks, and still more of the hiking and stuff.
So when you say water parks, like Wet and Wild type places?
Yeah.
Or Cowabunga, I'm not sure what they're called.
Yeah.
So when you would go to places like, let's say Wet and Wild, with your dad, was he the type of dad who's you go into the park and he posts up at the beach chair and you run around and do your thing, or is he going up and riding the slides?
No,
with you?
he would go up the slides with me and stuff, and always be like by me to make sure I had like fun and someone to talk to.
Playing games with you at Dave and Buster's, or is he sitting at the table?
Oh, David, but yeah. He plays like games with me, but most of the time he would just be like by me to make sure I'm okay.
Do you ever go with friends to the water park and to Dave and Buster's places, or was it just you and your dad?
No, I'll go with my friends.
When your friends would go, was your dad still riding the slides and
Oh,
playing
yeah.
game? Oh, he
Yeah.
was. Okay.
Yeah, he would still want to be involved.
Were you proud of your dad?
Oh yeah,
Were you
of
proud
course.
that he was your dad?
Yeah,
Why is that?
because he treated like everyone with kindness, like everyone the same, no matter who, will be equal. Really like humble and like generous. Always made sure I was happy and having fun. Cared about my future and stuff, and like give me advice.
I'm gonna make you tell me about some of that stuff. So,
Uh,
you mentioned I think your dad was into outdoors and like fitness type stuff.
yeah,
Oh, going to the gym, you said, right?
yeah,
Did he go to? Did, you said you go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week now? Is that right?
yeah,
Is that how often your dad went to the gym?
yeah,
Um, but you said he invited you all the time, but you didn't really go.
yeah.
Uh, I'm gonna take a look at it. I don't know, a handful of photos here. We're not gonna spend much time on them. I just want to go through them and see what you can tell me about them. Joe, can you put up 45001, please? Who are we looking at here, Eric?
I was like really young me.
That's really young you. I see it.
Yeah.
I see the resemblance. Is that your dad?
Yeah,
Where are you guys here?
pretty sure we were at like a party.
I see the balloons and the cake in the back.
Yeah,
All right, let's go to 47001. that you?
Yeah.
That sure is. How old are you here?
Probably like 8 or something.
I was gonna say 5, but I don't. All right, what do I know? Okay, that's your dad?
Yeah.
Let's go to maybe one that we can have a better memory of. Let's go to 41007. Um, uh, who are we looking at?
It's my dad taking a selfie with me in the car.
Okay, dad's got the mustache going, huh?
Yeah.
All right, and oh, your dad's reaching out and taking that himself?
Yeah.
Any idea what you guys are doing here? Where you're going?
I'm pretty sure this was before I went to school.
Your dad would take you to school?
Yeah. He like occasionally do like selfies and stuff.
Okay. All right. All right, let's go to 57001. Yeah. Who are we looking at, Eric?
Me and my mom and my dad.
And we keep seeing these photos with your dad wearing this kind of different versions of this red, white, and blue necklace. Do you see what I'm referring to?
Yeah.
What was it one necklace or was it more than one necklace that he would always wear?
He would have like 2. They were similar, but he would like switch out between the 2.
Were they both this red, white, and blue beaded style?
Yeah.
How are they different?
Well, one was a Puerto Rican flag, and
Okay,
the other one was a cross.
I see. And he would pretty much always be wearing one or the
Yeah.
other?
Yeah, he would alternate between the 2.
All right. And let's see, how much younger are you than the next youngest sibling in the family? Is
Like 10 years plus.
10 plus years? Okay.
Yeah.
So how old are you in this picture here?
Probably like 12. I think so.
Fair to say that by this time, your siblings had all moved out?
Yeah.
It was just you and your mom and your dad?
Yeah.
All right. And do you recognize or do you know what car you guys are in this picture?
Pretty sure it was my dad's car. Yeah.
When you say your dad's car, do you mean the Hyundai, the Hyundai Accent, the little
Yeah.
white car?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Let's look at 48001. What what are you doing here?
This pretty sure this was like a vacation spot we did. It was like a hotel and there was like a pool.
Where is that?
California.
Okay.
And I would always like to play in the pool, and my dad would want to play with me too. So this was just us like playing together.
All right. That's a funny way to play whatever you're doing there.
I forgot.
Okay. All right. And then just a couple more I want to look at. Let's look at 58002. All right. Actually, you look asleep here. Is that you?
Yeah.
And is that your dad?
Yeah.
What are you guys doing here?
Pretty sure this was before church.
You look dressed for church. Your dad doesn't.
It was like a casual one. Like some people would be dressed.
You guys go to church often?
Yeah, like every Sunday.
You go every Sunday?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he would occasionally like get dressed too.
So sometimes he would dress up, sometimes he would dress more
Yeah,
casual.
yeah.
That's cool. Is your dad's hat, does it say Bronx on it?
Yeah.
Was he from the Bronx?
Yeah.
Was he proud of being from the Bronx?
Oh yeah.
Why do you say that?
So he had a whole tattoo that
Oh,
said the
okay.
Bronx and stuff.
I think we've seen that. All right, and $41,003, please. And you look older in this picture. Is this you and your dad?
Yeah,
How old are you here?
I think 13, maybe.
Yeah. And was this taken in the house at Furnace Gulch?
Yeah,
You still live in the house off of Furnace Gulch?
yeah,
So is this probably within a year of your dad passing away? Would you
Ye-
agree?
yeah.
And I just really want to quickly look at two that we've already looked at previously and been admitted. Joe, show me 69005, please. And this is you guys at the buddy bench ceremony. Mr. Munoz came and testified about that. Do you remember being here?
Yeah.
Okay, and Joe, can you zoom in on that photo there in the middle? Or actually, I'm sorry, just go to 69003, which is also already admitted. 3003. These are all admitted, so you're fine. All right, there we go. Maybe the better one was better to look at. Okay. Do you recognize that photo?
Yeah.
Why do you recognize it?
I have it up in my room.
You have that photo up in your room?
Yeah.
Like still today?
Yeah.
Good picture. Okay. You can pull that down, Joe. Thank you. A little bit more, Eric. How old were you when your dad died?
14.
You talked about some of your dad's kind of qualities as a person earlier. When I asked you why you were proud of him.
Yeah.
You said he never broke his promises.
Nah. He would be like for his friends, he would be like the go-to person. If they ever needed help with something, like installing or anything.
For his friends?
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
And he would also like always make time for something. He would never go back on his word. So, if he said he would, he would.
You said his friends he looked at him as the go-to person you said for installing things?
Yeah. Just like installing like advice, any help. He'll be like the first person they think about.
You kind of touched on this. How did your dad treat people outside of the family? People you just might come across in everyday life.
Oh, he would still treat them like family. He would be super nice to them. He'll be equal to everyone, no matter like what age, what gender, like what skin color, he wouldn't care. He would just be nice.
Was your dad involved much in your schoolwork and your education?
Yeah, yeah. He really cared about, oh, sorry. He really cared about my education. He would say stuff like, be smart, do good in school, get good grades so you wouldn't like get a job like mine. Mhm.
He would say, get good grades so you don't end up with a job like mine. Is he talking about like his job as doing janitorial work?
Yeah, yeah.
You said your dad was humble.
Oh yeah,
He talked a lot. We've heard that from everyone. He liked to talk.
yeah.
Did he talk about himself very much?
No, just like the people he loved and like what they did and stuff. And like what he did with them. He would never act like he was better.
What do you remember about the day your dad died?
Well, I don't remember much. I was like in shock, I guess. But like I remember my mom, like coming and like screaming, like walking to the hospital, everyone crying. But like other than that, those are the only things I remember. It was just like shocking thing. So didn't remember a lot.
Eric, when did you start going to the gym a lot?
Like really soon after he passed.
So you didn't really go before he passed? You said you would just go occasionally?
Yeah.
Okay, so your dad died and you got really interested in getting fit, or how'd that go?
Oh, yeah, because like I felt more like connected to him. and he, wanted me to do that for a while. So it was like a way to connect or like feel connected.
What goes through your mind when you think about your dad not being here anymore?
How my mom felt, how everyone else felt, and like, like how am I gonna, like how's my future gonna look? Because I lost a person that like guide me, like, watch over me and stuff.
Um, I don't think you were here on Monday. You were at school on Monday, right? This
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
You know that your Aunt Marie and your brother Jason, they testified at this trial. Do you have any idea what they talked about?
No.
Uh, when they were asked about how they think that your dad's death has affected you, what was said, they said things like you completely shut down and then you're disassociated and you doesn't seem like you process this. What do you think about that?
They said that.
Yeah, they said that.
Um, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
Oh, you would agree with that?
yeah.
Why would you agree with that?
Because I like didn't know how to react to like all of it. So, I would just like keep everything to myself and like shut down.
When you think about your dad sometimes now, I mean, I'm sure there's times when you think positive and good memories. Is that a true statement?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, are there times when you think about your dad and it's not positive and not feeling happy?
Oh, yeah. I think of both. But like not because he was bad, but like, like the thing, like, him passing, like that kind of bad.
What do you do when you are thinking about your dad and it brings up bad feelings or sad feelings?
I put on music to like escape stuff.
What does listening to music do for you?
Just puts me in like another reality. So, I can like escape from it for a little bit. It was like too much.
Is that something you started doing after he passed?
Yeah, I still do it, but yeah.
Okay. During this trial, during some of the breaks, I've seen you put your AirPods in. Is that what you're doing? You listen to music?
Yeah. So like escape from like, cause like, being here is like pretty stressful for me. So I just like put it into like escape for a little bit while I can.
It's hard to hear a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
You hang out with your friends, you said. What do you think about when you see your friends with their dads?
I mean, like, uh, for a little bit, I wouldn't mind it, but then like there'd be times where I do get like jealous because they have that father figure and I don't. But yeah,
I was gonna let you go, but you said something earlier. I made a note here about your dad giving you advice.
Mhm.
So what type of advice, or were there any like sayings or life expressions that he used to give to you that kind of resonated with you?
It was with God. He was a big like religious person. Oh, trusting God.
Trusting God.
Yeah,
Your dad would say that to you a lot.
yeah.
What does that mean to you?
And, like what for me, it means like whatever happens, at the end of the day, you can't control it. Only God can. So just put your hope in Him.
Did you think about that saying after he passed away?
Oh yeah, yeah. Uh, because like you know, when I would think about it, it would be like, you know, like how can I trust God if like something this unfair happened, you know, and I can't do anything about it. So yeah, I'll like question that. Like, how could I trust him in the midst of all this?
All right. Thank you for answering my questions, Eric. I'll pass the witness.
Defense counsel, any questions for this witness?
No, Your Honor, I do not. Sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Do any of the jurors have any questions for this witness? If so, please write one question per page on one sheet of paper and put your juror number on one of the top corners of the paper. If anybody is writing, if you could raise your non-writing hand so I know to wait a minute. Okay, seeing no hands raised, I'm assuming there are no questions for this witness. Okay, do you all need a short break? We only anticipate one more witness today. But that witness might be kind of lengthy. However, we can always take a break in the middle of that witness's testimony. But I want to ask before we move on to the next witness, if anybody else needs a break at this time. Okay, good. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. You can go to sit down. Thank you for your testimony. Okay, counsel, are you ready to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Call Anne Marie.
Come on up, Ms. Echevarria. She need help.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No awareness.
You told me swear the testimony you're about to give. Name and spell your first and last name.
Anna Marie Echevarria, ANNMARIE, ECHEVARRIA.
You should be sure to pull that microphone real close. Okay? The little red button is on, it's on.
If you tap the microphone, you should be able to tell. No, press it again. There you go.
Okay.
You got it. Anne Marie, when were you born?
1965,
And where were you born?
Brooklyn, New York.
Tell us, what did your parents do growing up, Anne Marie?
My father worked for the school district in New York, and my mother worked at a factory.
How many siblings do you have?
I have 7. Am I too loud?
No, you're fine. Where in New York did you grow up?
Oh, I grew up in Amityville, Long Island. I moved when I was 2.
What was your first job, Anne Marie?
Babysitting,
How old were you when you started babysitting?
12.
How long did you babysit for?
Still babysitting. Probably till I was like 18, because then I moved to the Bronx with my first husband.
Where did you babysit?
At the neighbors' houses.
You like working with kids?
I love it. That's my passion.
What was your first official job outside of babysitting?
I worked at West Islip Daycare Center in West Islip, New York.
You said daycare center?
Yep.
Okay. What are your favorite age of kids to work with?
I love babies on up. Probably my favorite is probably to 5 years old.
How old were you when you first got married, Anne Marie?
I was 18.
And how many children did you have with your first husband?
4.
What are the names and ages of those children?
Okay, Moses is 39. Joey's 38, Ashley's 34, Jason's 28.
When did you move to Las Vegas?
Think it was 1992, if I'm pretty sure it was 1992.
And were all those children you just mentioned born in Vegas? Or where were they born?
The three older ones were born in the Bronx, and Jason was born in Las Vegas.
Were you and your ex-husband divorced?
5/7/98.
When you got divorced from your ex-husband, did you and your ex, did your ex help with the kids?
No.
And how many kids did you have at that point when you got divorced?
4.
What was it like taking care of 4 kids without your ex around?
Well, it was extremely hard. I was working 7 days a week, like 10 hours a day to support them.
Was that a difficult time in your life?
Very difficult.
What kind of work were you doing at that time?
I was working with children.
Where?
Since I moved here, I've been working consecutively, and a couple of times I changed job. The first one when I moved here I already had the job before I moved here, actually. I sent a resume. That was Cubby Bear Academy. And then I went to Romp and Play. I was at Romp and Play for 12 years until the owner passed away. I don't remember where I went from there, but then I was at Bright Child for 5 years, and the owner sold it. And then I started working with kids with autism, and that was at Behavioral Learning Solutions.
Do you enjoy, or did you enjoy working with autistic kids?
Oh, my favorite.
Tell
By
us
far,
why.
my favorite.
Why?
You know, it's so nice to see, kids with disabilities that you can help them do better, help them have better behavior, they're just so loving, and I just love it. It's my passion. I love it.
Did you feel like you were helping the autistic kids when you were doing
Oh,
work?
Definitely, yes. I was actually very, very good at my job, and I'm very, very sad that I'm not there.
Where did you first see Eric Sr.?
Okay, now we got some happy thoughts here. He worked at the school where my son Jason went. And it was the craziest thing. I used to bring Jay his lunch because actually I worked at a daycare and I did the bus run. So the kindergartners, I would either pick them up or drop them off. They have AM kindergarten, PM kindergarten. And I forgot Jay's lunch one time. And I was trying to get there. And I got there and they said, well, he had called my job to tell them that he was getting him lunch. But I didn't know him. And so I had to go meet him. I've seen him walking around and I'm like, okay. I did meet him and it was like sparks, like the smile, being so kind to a child, bringing him food. And we kind of hit it off. And then when I would like drop the kids off, I pick them up, whatever. His job was like to open the gates and do whatever. And I kind of would walk around and we would talk. And then we realized we're both from New York and we just hit it off. And then we started dating and it was like a whirlwind.
What do you mean it was a whirlwind?
It was amazing. He was it was like God just sent this man down to me. We started dating and then he had to go back to the military for just like 6 months. We kept in touch the whole time. When he came back, he proposed to me and God, we were married. Like he came back in January, March. We were married March 5th, 2006. And once he came to my family, he just took over like as a dad. Like he was never mean to my kids. He never put his hands on them. He was just so. Give me a second, please.
Take your time. We can take a little break. Don't worry.
Do you need longer than a minute or two?
Let's get through this, please. Thank you, though. He was amazing. He was so good to my kids. Of course, Jay was about 8 at that time, and their dad wasn't there. And he just took Jay. He never said, "This is my stepson." Everywhere he took him, "This is my son, Jay." I have a daughter, Ashley. Ashley was his daughter. Like, then I had the 2 older ones, but they were pretty much out of the house by then. And then we started having grandkids, and everybody called him grandpa. By the time he passed away, we had 6 grandkids. Now, next month, I'll have my 9th grandchild. But
Congratulations.
I don't just, he was just like nobody I ever met before. He was just really, really a wonderful, wonderful man.
All right. Happy thoughts again. Did you think Eric was handsome when you first saw him?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the sparks were flying. Yes, he was very, I mean, his smile could light up a room. He was very handsome.
And when you first met him, did you start dating pretty quickly?
Yeah, because we would like walk around and talk, and we got to know each other quite quickly. And then, yeah, we started dating.
What did he go to California for?
He was in the military, Fort Irwin.
Was he in the military before you met him?
Yes,
How long was he in California for during the military?
it was 6 months for that time, but then he was done. When he was done with that, he had been there for years.
When he came back, did he propose?
Yes, he did.
How long was it until the ceremony, the wedding ceremony, when he came
Um,
back?
Well, he proposed to me in January, so like 2 months.
Pretty quick.
Yeah, oh, everything was very, very quick. It was like, I don't know, there was such a connection, like an amazing connection. Like this is who I was going to be with for the rest of my life.
How was the marriage like once you got married?
Like I said, he just came in and like took over. I had a rough 6 years when I was divorced. I had to, pay everything. And like, no offense to anybody, I never went to welfare. I worked and worked and worked to take care of my kids. And when he came in, that was over. I started working just, 5 hours a day. He provided for me and my kids. He just made sure everything was taken care of. Everything, cars, the house, just everything that he could do as a man, he did.
Did everyone adjust to him and accept him pretty quickly?
Oh, yes. Everybody loved Eric, from where he worked to people he met. I mean, we'd be in the store and now he's talking to this one. And just everybody loved Eric.
Before little Eric was born, did you and Big Eric do things together with your other kids?
Oh, yes.
Which kids?
Mostly Jason, because Jason was the littlest. And like I said, Eric took Jason on as his son. And he would take Jason places without me too. I don't know, barbecues or, whatever, with his army buddies. They go paintball. Yeah, we'd go like to California. We went to New York. After Eric was born, we did a lot more trips. Eric's very spontaneous. I'm not, and he is. So if he said in the morning, let's go to California, we just got everything together and went to California. He's like, you know what, next week, let's go to New York. His family's in New York, my family. We'd go visit his family and my family. It just,
At some point, did you find out you were pregnant with little Eric?
very quickly. Yes, I did.
What were you thinking when you realized you were pregnant?
Well, I was happy. He was my 5th kid, and I've had amazing pregnancies. I love being pregnant. If I could have 10 more kids, I would have 10 more kids. But I had Eric at 41, so that's where we stopped. But I was very happy. I was really happy.
You told Eric Senior that you were pregnant?
Oh my gosh.
What was his reaction? Tell us.
He was so excited. He didn't have any other kids. So this would be his first, real, not real kid, but his first biological child. He was going crazy. It was like the best thing in the world for him.
He's excited.
Oh, more than excited. He was, oh my gosh.
How was the pregnancy with little Eric?
Good. It was good.
How was the delivery?
Well, at the end, well, I had him a little bit early because my blood pressure got really high while it's like preeclampsia. So they did have to induce him. But besides that, and that was at the very end, I wasn't even like, I went in for an appointment and they were like, your blood pressure is way too high. And then they kept me to induce him. But it was like a month before he was supposed to be born.
Which hospital?
Sunrise Hospital.
And was Big Eric there when he was born?
Every moment, every moment. I was even a little bit upset because after I had the baby and they take the baby away, he went with them and left me there. I was like, where is everybody? He wanted to make sure like he wasn't going nowhere. He went right with them.
And whose decision was it to name him Eric Jr.?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Whose decision was it to name him Eric
We
Jr.?
both actually decided to name him Eric because of his dad, but Eric wanted Jay, because he wanted Jay to be included, to pick a middle name for Jay. I mean, for Eric. And he said his name, Jason. So Eric's name is Eric Jason Echevarria Jr.
And did Eric Senior have a middle name?
No, he did not.
But even though he's Eric Jason Echevarria, you still gave him the junior.
Yeah.
Okay. How was Big Eric with little Eric when little Eric was a baby?
He was really good with him. He was really good. He was so proud to have a he was very, very proud.
Has little Eric always lived in Vegas?
Yes.
What kind of things did little Eric and Big Eric do together as little Eric was growing up?
Well, he spoiled Eric. Oh my gosh, he spoiled he spoiled him. They would have like train rides in Boulder City. Thomas the train would come and he'd be like, he just, make the reservations to go. And because Eric loved trains so much, he'd ride back and forth with the train with Eric. We actually at one point went to the Polar Express when they had their Polar Express train come. He would take him to, on the side of Palace Station is trains. Well, it used to be back in the day when Eric was little. And Eric would see those trains and he'd want to go and Eric would turn the car around and let Eric climb up there and, play with the train. Couldn't play with them, but like touch the trains and they were like carved in the wall. Yeah, he would take Eric everywhere, Wet and Wild, GameWorks, movie, and everywhere, just everywhere. They were always together.
Did they build or assemble toy trains also?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Did they assemble toy trains? Were there trains that they would assemble?
Okay, so they didn't assemble them, but Big Eric bought him. I mean, these trains were like $500 and they wouldn't, this is going back. And they would go around the track and it was actually the Polar Express train and it would blow smoke and little Eric would lay on the floor and do his little thing and it would just go around and he'd go choo, 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 choo. But he loved his trains.
Any sports together? Did they play any games together? Like,
So Eric took him boxing. He brought him to go boxing. He played baseball. Eric was not, Jay was more athletic. Eric was not, he wasn't like an athletic kid. He was just more, school, and he liked more of like putting Legos together, going places, going wherever with his dad. He wasn't that interested in athletics though.
would Big Eric do those things with them, like the Legos, the things you mentioned? Okay. Let me just ask you, did they spend a lot of time together?
Yes, they did.
And how was Eric Senior as a dad from your
You
perspective?
know what? I just want to slip this in there real quick. So after I had Eric worked nights and I worked days. And he changed his schedule so that he could be, because I could take Eric with me to work, so that he could be home in the morning with little Eric. And then I would come home and he would go to work. And then, of course, I would have Eric. That's how much time they wanted to spend. He wanted to spend with him.
So he changed his schedule
He
to spend.
changed his schedule so that he could be with him during the day. Because by the time he would, go at night, if I'm at work all day and, he comes home at night, he's not going to see him. So he wanted to, that's what he wanted to do.
We talked about things Eric Senior and Eric Junior would do together. How about things all three of you would do together?
Oh, definitely. He was very spontaneous. He would, let's go to California. Let's go to Knott's Berry Farm. Let's go to Disneyland. Like with no plans. Let's just go. California, New York. Just let's go. And that's not me. I'm not spontaneous at all, but I liked it. It was like opposites attract. It was cool. Like I didn't have to think about it. It's like, let's go.
Is it exciting for you?
Yes.
Okay. You saw that picture of little Eric and big Eric in a pool? Where was that?
That was probably in Laughlin. I think that was in Laughlin.
Did you go to Laughlin a lot?
Yeah.
Would they just hang out in the pool all day?
Well, this is how this works with Laughlin. If you go to Laughlin one time and get a card, they send you free rooms all the time. So you can go for like 2 nights, 3 days for free. So we would just, once we got it, we would just go and then just hang out in the pool and stuff.
Were there times when big Eric and little Eric would see each other at school?
Yes. So if you work in the school district, you're allowed to have your child go to the same school as you. And so when he was in kindergarten, Eric went to the school with him. And they were in that school maybe 2 or 3 years. Then maybe 2 years, because once he started middle school, he went to a middle school. And then he went to Ober, and Eric went with him to Ober. And the last school he worked at was, no, Eric didn't go to Abston. Eric went to William Wright Elementary, and Eric had worked there too.
Would you say they were close growing up when,
yeah.
as little Eric grew up?
Yeah.
Would it be fair to describe big Eric as the head of the family?
Oh, very much so.
Who handled the financial stuff, you or big Eric?
Eric did. Eric believed that a man should take care of the house, and he had his own bank account. I had my bank account. His bank account was to pay all the bills, and mine was like groceries, if the kids needed something, stuff like that.
How about like issues with the cars, issues with the house? Who would handle stuff
Yes,
like that?
He would. He would. And I'm gonna just tell you, I've actually been having a very hard time because I guess as a woman, they think you're stupid when you walk into a car dealership and I go to get my oil changed on a new car and they're like, oh, you need $1,000 worth of work done. That was a few months ago. Now I need $1,600 worth of stuff. There's not even 30,000 miles on the car. I don't need any of that. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
Feel like
But I've never had to do that. My first oil change almost died.
Eric always took care of that?
Eric took care of everything.
Did you ever fill up gas yourself, or did Eric do that for
Eric
you?
did the gas. He always did the gas.
How about chores around the house? Did he help with chores around the house?
Yeah. Eric was OCD. Everything had to be clean. Everything had to be clean.
Was he like a handyman?
Yeah.
Like if something broke in the house, would he fix
He
it?
could fix it.
Okay. Did he insist on doing things like that?
Yes, he did.
Let's talk about holidays a little bit, like Christmas time. What kind of things would big Eric do for little Eric at Christmas?
Every year would get worse and worse. Like more money, more money, more money. Let's just keep, you have to outdo the year before. But he always made sure he had, and he did for my kids too. They always had an amazing Christmas. Always.
He spoiled them.
Oh, yes.
How about, did he spoil you? Did he buy you presents?
Yes. Actually, 2015, it was my birthday, and I came home and he had got me brand new off the showroom floor, a brand new red Hyundai Tucson.
Very nice. Was that a surprise?
Yeah, very much. I was like, oh my gosh, yes. Actually, my niece went with him to pick it out and she's like, I knew you loved red. And that's what he got me, red.
Was he good to you?
Yeah, he was very, very good to me. You know, my first husband was good, but we were very, very young when we got married and we just grew apart. But Eric was a different kind of man. He was extremely caring, extremely. What made me the happiest is that he loved my kids. You know, I don't know. I mean, I've known a lot of people that, you know, a man comes in and he doesn't treat them equally. He always treated my kids equally. And then when we started having grandkids, he treated them exactly the same.
Very nice. Before Eric passed, did you have pets?
Zoe,
Dog?
the Chihuahua.
How did Zoe like Eric?
He loved Eric. She loved him. She loved Eric.
All right. What was Eric's position at work?
Okay, so he started out as a maintenance man, but in like I think it is 2008 when the market crashed and all that. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So at the school district, everybody's getting laid off. So if you were there for a longer time, it was called ripped. Everybody got ripped. So the people that just started working there, worked there like a shorter time period, they got let go. Eric had been there so long that he was at the top of the list, but you have to take the position they give you because there's not that many positions. So he got down to custodian, but it was fine. He loved it. He actually loved it. It didn't faze him at all.
Did Eric ever complain about work?
No. All his friends were at work. All the teachers, the kids, Eric was a special man. Like everybody was like drawn to him.
Was he close to his coworkers?
Yes. And when I would go there, you know, stop by or whatever, and all the teachers like, well, you know, he always walks me to my car, make sure I get, you know, and he was very nice. He was nice to everybody.
Did you and Eric ever talk about retirement? Eric retiring?
Well, yeah, our dream was that when we retire, that we would be able to just go somewhere and sit on the beach with blue water and have cocktails and not a care in the world. That's what we were striving for.
I want to talk about the crash, okay?
Go ahead.
Do you remember the day the crash happened?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have work that day?
Yes.
Did you see Eric Sr. before you left for work?
In the morning when I left, he was off because the kids weren't in school. It was winter break. You know, I gave him a hug and a kiss. I love you. And I went on my merry way. I went to work. And I think I got off about 2. I know I clocked out at 2, but sometimes the parents linger on and they want to talk, but it was approximately 2. And he had told me early in the day he wanted spaghetti for dinner. I remember this like it was yesterday. And so I'm on my way home and I stop at Albertsons and I'm in Albertsons and I felt like something left my body. And immediately I knew something happened. I knew something happened. So the first person I called was little Eric because I thought it was big Eric. I thought something happened to big Eric. So I called little Eric and can you ask him if he wants to leave, please?
Maybe should we
I don't
take-
know if he
should
wants
we-
to hear this.
Should we take a break, Your Honor?
Yeah, actually, now might be a good time. Let's take our afternoon break. This will be at least 15 minutes for you guys, but like I said, if any of you guys need a little bit more than 15 minutes, you can feel free to take it, but we are gonna try to plan for 15 minutes on our end, with the hope that we can get you in here at the 20-minute mark or less. At this time, I've got to read you the instruction and then I will release you for your afternoon break. This will probably be the only break that we give you this afternoon, before we break for the day. You're instructed not to talk with others, text others, tweet, or excuse me, let me just start from the beginning. You're instructed not to talk with each other or with anyone else about any subject or issue connected with this trial. You're not to read, watch, or listen to any report of or commentary on the trial by any person connected with this case or by any medium of information, including without limitation, newspapers, television, the internet, or radio. You're not to conduct any research on your own relating to this case, such as consulting dictionaries, using the internet, or using any reference materials. You're not to conduct any investigation, test any theory of the case, recreate any aspect of the case, or in any other way investigate or learn about the case on your own. You're not to talk with others, text others, tweet others, Google issues, or conduct any other kind of book or computer research with regard to any issue, party, witness, or attorney involved in this case. You're not to form or express an opinion on any subject connected with this trial until the case is finally submitted to you. Okay, with that being said, you are on a break for 15 minutes. We ask that you come back at 2:25. Okay, does anyone wish to make any kind of record at this time? You can go ahead and go up there and speak to your son if you would like.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
My paralegal went over to try to pull the Justice Court file. And the scram patches are all confidential. The Justice Court will not release them.
What was the order issued on that?
She's trying to pull that right now. She had to submit an order form, so she's trying to pull that. To see if we can
Did it
catch
give her,
anything. However, I do have an indication from the hearing itself that there was some concern as to the validity of them because there was the scram patches before appeared to be negative, and then the scram patches after appeared to be negative. So, and then there was not any follow-up blood testing. And then just because I don't do criminal, I'm not all that familiar with scram patches, but just based upon some brief research, it appears that scram patches are often used, but if you were going to verify the results, you need to take a blood test and verify the results. If there is a positive, as other drugs can cause a false negative or a false positive for methamphetamine, including a whole host of potential drugs, including things that are as common as decongestants and cold medication. So with the unreliability of those types of documents and the inability to access per the Justice Court, and I think she's trying to get something in writing from the Justice Court clerk, that we are unable to access those documents because they are sealed. I just wanted to put that on the record that we are attempting to do that. I am attempting to call his criminal counsel to see if we can dig up anything, but at this point, our position would be that the false positives that are referenced by counsel should not come in. They are extraordinarily overly prejudicial, have not been verified, and there's no testimony from a toxicologist to support those documents as being verified. And if they are allowed to come in as just in a speculative nature, would be extraordinarily prejudicial given the nature of this case.
Go ahead with a response. Sorry,
It
excuse me.
sounded like a bunch of attorney argument, Your Honor. And the problem is, if we had this information when they disclosed the criminal file, we could have, in theory, given it to our toxicology expert. And on the stand, he could explain whether they're valid or invalid. We can get information from an expert that we actually hired on this case. If there is no expert in the criminal case testifying that they're invalid, and there's no court order from the lower court saying they're somehow invalid, then I think they're fair game for his credibility. He said, I didn't even ask him specifically. He said, he volunteered it. I don't do drugs. I don't do drugs. He's put his credibility issue. It's an issue in this case. I have the right to impeach him. I should be able to present it to him. And he can't say they're invalid. He can say, oh, I didn't do the drugs if he wants, but he doesn't have the expertise to say they're invalid. Defense counsel doesn't have anyone testifying they're invalid. I think it's perfectly fair game, Your Honor, for impeachment.
If that's the case, Your Honor, I would request that I be allowed to call witnesses that can discuss the test results in the aftermath of the criminal filings, including Zaon's criminal counsel and a potential toxicologist to discuss these findings, because at this point, we're getting into such depth of extrinsic evidence to for their purposes of impeachment that is what would be required to remedy any prejudice. From the introduction of speculative testimony from Ms. Echevarria as to her understanding of a criminal proceeding in the Justice Court.
Okay. Anybody else want to say anything? Before I ask a few questions?
think it's speculation, Your Honor. We have a toxicology result that's positive, so that's with that, I'll just leave it.
I'm not concerned so much, well, I don't know what the exact question is gonna be, so it could be speculative in nature, but how did these get in is what I'm wondering. Like, how do you get these in, do you think? Cause
Well,
who do you have that can, I mean, and I understand that like this, well, I don't know what your answer's gonna be. How do you get these in?
well, first of all, anything can be used to refresh a witness's recollection. Even
Who are these gonna refresh?
Mr. Zaon Collins, if I say, wasn't there a positive drug test result?
Okay,
What, weren't there two positive drug test results when you were on house arrest? You
he
said,
says, I don't do any drugs, and you say, haven't you tested positive for drugs before,
correct.
without saying methamphetamine?
Correct.
Okay.
And if he says no, then may I approach to refresh the witness's recollection? I show him the document. And if he still says no, Your Honor, the problem is now there's fraud upon the court. These are positive test results.
Well, no, maybe he actually doesn't know about these tests for some reason. I don't know what the scenario of that would be, that he doesn't know about these test results. But, I mean,
He knows about them. He was at the hearings, Your Honor. I don't know how he wouldn't know about them.
okay. So if he says, no, I've never tested positive, and then you say, okay, I'm gonna show you these to refresh your recollection, then I'll come into evidence then he looks at them, and you say, do these refresh your recollection? And he says, let's go both scenarios. He says, yes, what do you say next?
So you agree there were two positive test results while you're on house arrest? You said earlier you don't do drugs, right? I can leave it at that, Your Honor. And then the jury can decide whether he's being credible or he's being incredible.
Now, what if he says, no, this doesn't refresh my recollection?
Then
I've
he's
never
committing-
seen those documents before.
He's committing fraud in the court. It's that simple.
Well,
The problem is his counsel can't let him.
because these don't come in under anything we've got anyway. They don't come in. Now, using something to refresh recollection is different than it being brought into evidence. He never said he never tested positive for any kind of drugs. At least not that I heard him say.
Well, even if that's true, if he says I don't do drugs, but yet there's a positive drug test, that would potentially impeach his testimony that he don't do drugs. And the testimony I don't do drugs is going towards his claim that he didn't smoke marijuana before this crash, which is a primary issue in this case, Your Honor. If we're not allowed to present this impeachment evidence because defense did not disclose the entire criminal file, we are going to be severely prejudiced on the impeachment of Zaon for something that is not our fault.
Just thinking, okay, you ask those questions and then they get to come and try to explain this.
But they can't explain. He's not an expert witness.
Well, no, he'll get to say, they didn't change my probation. They didn't change anything. The court threw out those results. And then what do you get to do? You can't challenge that in any way. If we,
That's not true. The court did not throw out the results. All the court did is not change his probation. There's no order from the court saying these results are invalid, or we're throwing these out, or discarding them. That would be a false statement, Your Honor.
so there's no order on this state's notice of motion and motion to remand and increase bail. No order followed this. And we have a justice court, whoever's in Department 8 of Justice Court.
My
Never-
understanding is the
never issued an
order
order?
did not remand the bail. That doesn't mean.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I will tell you, I mean, when a motion gets filed in here, I'm supposed to respond to it. So every motion that gets filed in here, I'm supposed to do some kind of order responding to it. There's no order responding to it. That addresses this. You said your system might be trying to pull it, Miss Zinna?
Correct, we are trying to pull it right now. The docket indicates that the motion was heard and denied.
Denied, and then he was subject to.
Was there an order denying it, or it's just an oral denial.
Trying to find it.
If you can see on the record, and look. I don't know what happened at the justice court level, because I'm obviously not the judge that's sitting on this case. And I don't know what the other practices are in the justice court level too.
My understanding is after this, they were required to,
But if this is the way you're gonna use this to refresh his recollection, this is not something we need to have a ruling on today. This is something I can think about for a minute.
I don't have
Excuse
to
me.
have.
And you guys can-
Talk about it, Your Honor, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, you guys can continue to try to pull relevant documents to this. And we can figure out how we're gonna deal with it. I also,
She is gonna talk about how some of the rulings of things that happened in the criminal case increased her damages and it affected her emotionally, but I can have her not talk about this specific issue as far as
yeah, I think it wouldn't be appropriate for her to talk about this specific issue for a variety of reasons, including that this is still pending. I also think that, do one of you guys have Zaon's testimony in a daily that I can read? Cause I wanna read what he actually said,
I can get that to
because-
your, I can get that to you
okay.
right away.
because I've never had a positive drug test result and I don't do drugs are two different things.
they may be two different things, Your Honor, but it still arguably impeaches the claim I don't do drugs if there's a positive test result, because someone could easily come to the conclusion that if you
Isn't he
say,
already impeached by the fact that you have a positive test result from your from your toxicology test already in this accident?
I appreciate that, Your Honor, but the truth is, we're not gonna know whether the jury finds him credible or incredible until after verdict. So I don't think we should be precluded from impeaching him to the extent that we want to impeach him, if that makes sense.
Okay, anything else you guys want to say on this before I need to give my staff at least 5 minutes so that if any of them needs to use the restroom, they have time to. And frankly, I think it might be a good idea. I'm not telling you guys you have to, but if any of you have to as well, please do so. And Mr. Echevarria, if you want to leave, I don't require people's presence here. I can't require people's presence here, Mister. So you're not required to sit here if this is making you uncomfortable, because I think there was a request from your mother when she was on the stand to allow you to leave the room. I want to be clear, and maybe there was some confusion because I wasn't inclined to give an instruction unless there was stipulation to it. But I've also haven't given an instruction saying everybody's required to be here for every moment of this. Okay, so I want to be real clear, and I don't think it's appropriate for me to give that instruction that everybody's required to be here for every moment of this either. So if anybody needs to walk out at any point, you're not precluded, you're not locked in this room. I've also been asked throughout here if people could talk to certain other people. I don't preclude you from talking to people too, but talk to your lawyers first to make sure it's not going to in some way affect the case. I think that's all. I think we're kind of beating dead horse right now without more information. So unless council has something new,
Just real quick, I just need to, she's on the stand, so I want to make sure I'm permitted to talk to her and just tell her not to bring up the positive drug test when she's testifying.
well, I think she understands from this conversation, you're not to bring up the positive drug test results that
We
we're.
can't hear you, Your Honor.
Oh, okay. Do you have any problem with him telling his client that? Or,
And I trust Mr. Ladah would not violate his ethical duties and say anything else, so yes.
The other option is she can come closer so she can make sure she can hear you, Your Honor, if you want her to do that.
either one, whatever you want to do, I don't mind saying what's going on here, but I also don't mind you telling her what we're making. I don't think that's coaching your witness when you're telling her a limitation that I'm putting on her testimony.
Understood, thank you.
Okay, so let's take a break now. Please try to be back in 5 minutes.
Thank you, Judge.
Thanks.
He doesn't have to.